Alrighty, let's see. Where were we? Okay, make and keep commitments. So this means, and the reason it's separated into two is because one, you have to keep your commitment. So don't make commitments you can't keep. So don't commit to 10 things if you can only do 7. It's better to do 7 for 7 than to do 7 out of 10. And if you're overcommitting, you're probably putting some attention to that extra 3, and it's probably more likely that you end up with 6 out of 10 or 5 out of 10. Whereas if you commit to the amount you can actually do, then 7 for 7 is better. And the second part is to make commitments. So if you undercommit because you fear that you'll have to you'll fail to keep it, then you're not going to stretch yourself. So you have to not undercommit, but because you're afraid of making them, but you also have to not overcommit because you'll fail at keeping them. But think of it in terms of having X amount of time and budgeting your time. If I spend this amount I have 24 hours in a day, or more realistically, probably like 14 after the bare minimums, and then probably like a couple hours of other things. So let's say you have like 12 hours in a day that you can budget for different commitments. Maybe that includes doing a certain project or task, talking to someone that you need to talk to, or having a certain conversation with someone, and maybe the person changes and the topic changes, but maybe that'll take time. Maybe, your whatever it is at your job is separate from your task, whatever stuff. So you make a list, and then if you're over budgeting your time, then you're not going to be able to keep them all, or to the degree that you want. So if you actually look at it as a budget, then you can actually value them in terms of importance. So let's say you have important people in your life, maybe kids, for example, and then you, instead of just going through your day, picking up commitments and doing the things like juggling yourself, then whatever is left is what you have with your kids, and then maybe the way you act doesn't actually match what you feel is most important because you didn't budget your time according to your priorities and value of importance. Okay. Remember your previous commitments before making new ones. So check back in on the things that you have to do that you've already budgeted your time for before committing to something new. So maybe you can say, I'll get back to you on that after checking my previous commitments, or say, I'll get you a response soon, or something like that. Actually take the time to do some math. Or maybe you say, I'm currently focused on these 3 commitments. Do you think yours is more important than them if it's work, for example? And the example here I'm pulling for this one is in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey gave an example where he had something he wanted to get done, and so he went to his very busy friend, because he gets things done, and they replied with, well, Stephen, I want you to let me know which of these 3 tasks I'm currently working on that you think I should drop to make time for your request. And Stephen looked at them and he was like, mine is not important enough for that, so I'll find someone else. I didn't want to be the one responsible for making this guy do less of the important things. Next one, carry your own weather. So maybe if it rains outside, then you don't make it rain around you, basically. So when something happens to you, you don't let that determine your weather. So if you're moody, maybe that should be because you're moody today and not because of this thing that happened. If you're calm, and so on. So basically, be proactive about the weather you want to carry. So the energy you bring out to other people, the mood that surrounds you, rather than being reactive to something that happened today. So, someone comes in with bad news, you jump up, you get annoyed, you complain, or you say that's not okay, or whatever. It's like, or you can sit down, and because you've decided on the way you're going to act, then you listen, and then you decide how to react. When we're triggered emotionally, it's easy to forget that we have a choice as to how we will respond. Carrying your own mission and priorities so that you have an anchor that prevents you from drifting with the winds as they may. So if you have your priorities, then when something happens, you're not just going with the flow and maybe just reacting all the time. Calibrate your response with the knowledge that you won't feel the same way in an hour or a day, so you don't make quick regrets. So when you're responding, respond with the knowledge that the way you feel about what is being said is going to change very fast. And if you just respond only considering that the way you feel now, you're going to wish you said things differently. Don't get sucked in by the emotions of others. If someone else is angry, that doesn't mean you automatically have to be angry. If someone else is annoyed, that doesn't mean you automatically have to get annoyed. So, if they're trying to start a fight, that doesn't mean you have to reciprocate. Identify people or circumstances that cause emotional reactions to prepare yourself beforehand. So maybe if you say, oh, George always gets annoyed whenever something happens, and I always find it so annoying. But I'm not going to allow myself to be annoyed when he shows up and whines. Okay. That way you become better prepared. Because when you tell yourself of a decision like that, what happens is that when it happens, you add a drop to the probability. It's like a gacha. It's like a gambling machine, right? So it's like an event happens, and there's you spin the wheel, and what does the wheel come out? It comes out with a set of thoughts, right? So it's like a gacha. You roll the gacha, you get something, and then when you open it, you find a thought that you have. So when an event happens, now you have a probability drop chance of that thought being, I am not. George isn't whining. I'm not going to let myself be annoyed by it. So when you tell yourself I'm not going to allow myself to be annoyed by it beforehand, you add that to the gacha pool. And if it pops up during that event, when it pops up, every single time you have that thought at that event, you increase the probability it will drop next time. And if the more times you actively have that thought, the more times you add it to the gacha pool. So every time you have that thought, you increase the probability. So that's basically how habits work, right? It's like making new habits. It's you have event, triggers a thought, triggers a reaction. So for example, he's annoyed. I go, he's fucking bullshitting me again. Reaction is annoyance, emotion. So event, thought, reaction. And to make new habits, you have to intercept a new thought that is mapped to a new action. So when this thought comes up and it successfully triggers this action, then you start to reinforce the new habit. And eventually it skips the thought and goes to action. For example, when you're driving, you don't go think, like, you see it turn yellow and you don't think it's going to turn red, I stop. You just stop. Like, you don't have that thought anymore because you skip the thought now. And here's the thing. So old habits also skip the thought. But when you consciously try to intercept it, so in this case, you prepare yourself by saying, I'm not going to get annoyed with George's bullshit, then there's a chance that it triggers the thought instead of just skipping the thought. Okay. Delay pressing the send button when you are emotional. So if you're emotional, so this one only works when you're messaging people instead of a talking person. But if you're emotional, don't just bash your keyboard and smash enter. Like, you can bash your keyboard all you want, but pause for just a second before you smash enter. Just a second, and then just long enough for you to go, I'm emotional right now. Delete it, and then you'll bash your keyboard again. But if you stop yourself long enough to delete it, then the duration that you type it again gives you enough, it buys you enough time. And then if you can catch yourself again, then you buy yourself more time, and then you slowly calm down. And obviously in the future, you're not going to have to do that. Eventually, you'll have enough control to just not bash your keyboard. Forecast your weather. Go, I'm gonna stay calm today. I'm not gonna let anybody fire me up. Maybe you'll fail, but try it every single day. Forecast your weather. You are your own meteorologist, as the book says. Okay. Trust. To pre-extend trust before it's fully earned can be a way or opportunity for people to rise to the occasion and stretch themselves. Don't put it too far. So basically the idea is that it's a bit like a challenge, right? You can trust, you don't have to trust like a stranger on the street to give you a piggyback ride, but let's say trust them to do something just that they haven't done before, but it's close enough that they should have the shot. And then the trust will usually stretch them that far. And obviously, depending on the person, sometimes they'll stretch farther, so you can trust a larger gap for them because they have proven record of, like, they have the experience of stretching themselves over and over again. But the idea is to pre-extend trust before it's proven, to give them a chance, and without getting angry at them if they try and fail. If they don't try, then clearly they didn't deserve it. But it's better to allow yourself to put yourself at the risk of, like, the risk isn't going to be great, right? Like, you can choose ones where you don't lose much if they don't stand up to it. And this is about leadership, but I'm going to get to the point later. So think about it this way. If you, say, trust someone to finish a task in a certain amount of time, and this task is slightly more difficult than the ones they did before, and then see if they get it right. And usually, a lot of the time, they will get it right. And sometimes you may be disappointed, but the reward is worth the risk. Because think of like micromanagers, right? Like someone who got promoted because they did the job they now manage people to do very well. So now, instead of managing the people or like being a leader for the people, that they just go, you should do it this way, you should do it that way, instead of or let me show you how to do this, let me show you how to do that, was instead of taking a step back, is they never really make progress because they don't trust the people to make progress. So they end up having to do that forever. And the people don't really feel great either because they feel like they're not in control. And so, well, burnout is when you have high expectations and you feel low control. So, basically, if you pre-extend trust a little bit, allow yourself to occasionally be disappointed, but if you extend that trust, then it's going to be the returns are worth more than the losses. It's not a balanced equation here. And so here's the thing. Wait, hold on. A lot of your willpower to achieve things in the past comes from someone else pre-extending trust to you. So if someone else is trusting you to do something and then you stretch yourself to do it, a lot of the time that's why in awards it's like, I want to thank the people who supported me because they trusted you before you proved yourself. able to do it. So you stepped up and did something more. So here's the thing. You have to set goals that are a little bit above what they've proven able to do before. And then try to do it. Now you can do this with yourself. Extend that trust a little bit. Let yourself say, if I fail, I'm not going to hate myself over it. I'm not going to shoot myself over it. But I'm going to try, and I'll try a second time if I fail. And this is difficult. This can be difficult. But it's a muscle. And obviously you should extend it to other people too. But the point is that you can do it with yourself. And some people, even if they fail, you can let them try again. As long as you minimize the risk of failure and the damage if they disappoint, then it doesn't matter if they fail. Like, just, it's okay. Why does it matter? Now, where does this fail? This fails in short-term connections. For example, maybe a team project at school. But here's the thing, everybody has their roles, and usually it's controlled, right? So at school, there's maybe, that you shouldn't, you just divide it into, say, for three people. You do your third, and usually the teacher is going to be like, okay, well, this guy didn't do his job. I won't punish everyone for it, in my experience. But if you have anything that you want to be long-term, then you should try it and try it again. And your relationship with yourself is permanent. So you have to stretch yourself to become someone who keeps promises to yourself, who will stretch that little bit extra to match your trust in yourself. As long as you control it and don't beat yourself up after. That's the idea that I got. The book wasn't talking about it in that context, but that's how I figure.